Hello everybody, welcome back to Brain Freeze. I'm going to be today reviewing Spider-Man Into the Spoderverse, and the reason why I've decided to do this on a video format for the first time in a very long time, it's been almost 2 years since I've actually done a video review, and the reason for that is because there's just so much to talk about. Doing a Twitter review in, 240 characters is just not going to do it justice at all. I need to have a long discussion about it, talk with you guys over the positives and the very few negatives, and basically, the long story short is that I'm going to be giving it probably a 9 or a 9.25 out of 10. It's probably the best film of the year that I've seen, definitely. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was the best film of the year in total, because it is fantastic film. It is so well balanced for all of the elements that it has in there. It has 6 spider characters, and you don't feel for 1 second that you're being overloaded with information, that it feels too bloated, that the pacing is too quick because you've got too much to talk about. It just feels perfect. It feels perfectly balanced in every way. The music is fantastic, the art style is fantastic, the characters are brilliant, and they all encompass different aspects of Spider-Man, and they all have their own personalities and all very separate entities in themselves, but they work so well together when they're in the same room. They have this chemistry that always works, and the film's funny, but the film is also, very serious, and it does have a bit of a problem that sometimes it tries to pack in too many jokes, and some of them don't hit the mark, but you get that a lot of the time these days anyway with any film. It was the same in Deadpool 2. There was just so many jokes in there that not all of them were going to hit the mark, but with this film I can objectively say there is almost absolutely nothing wrong with it. The only reason why I'm not giving it a 10 is because I am not totally in love with this film to the point where I want to just go back and watch it immediately. I do want to watch it again, but I'll give a little bit of time to reflect first, and I'm not crazy about this film in terms of I'm absolutely obsessed with this film like I have been a couple of others in the past few years, but I would definitely say this film is up there. It is just a brilliant film, and it's very self-aware of what it is as well. You have the character Miles Morales. He is a very new take on Spider-Man. He's a very youthful take, a very young, kind of hip, sort of trendy, kind of graffiti-loving artist. He's very unique in his Spider-Man abilities, but he already exists within the Spider-Man universe. He is a very, prominent character. He has his own line of comics, and I'm pretty sure all the characters that are in this film, that the Spider characters, do have their own line of comics as well. But I'm going to have to check for a couple of them. So let's go through the characters, I guess. We have, obviously, Miles Morales himself. He's the son of a police officer. He's a bit of a kind of a rookie sort of thing going on, but his art style is very modern, and he's a funny guy, and you immediately love him as soon as you start watching him in the film. He's the main character. He's what it's all about. It's his story on how he becomes Spider-Man, and it's just brilliant all the way through. And we also have Peter B. Parker, who is a Spider-Man from another universe where Peter Parker, even though he saves the day, he couldn't save his own marriage because him and MJ had a kind of collision on what they wanted to do with their lives. She wanted to have kids, and he was too scared to commit to that, so she ended up divorcing him, and he turned into a bit of a loser. He's kind of down and out, psychologically he wasn't really in a very good place. And then when he goes off into the normal world, I guess you would call it, he kind of has this sort of subplot that goes all the way through, and he kind of learns that maybe he does want kids, and maybe he should just stand up and fix everything that he has broken, I guess you could say. And he does that, and he develops as a character, and he's always witty and funny, and they always have these jokes that he looks a bit fat, and he kind of looks a little bit homeless as well, because he kind of looks like he's got his stubble, and he's not really very cut up very well. But he's a brilliant character, and he was probably my favorite character of the film, I'll be honest, even though he's not the main character. But there you go. And you got Spider-Gwen, who is a strong, empowering female character who is also a superhero. And the film doesn't shove it down your face, not once. You don't have to think about it twice, more than just she exists and she's there, and she is all alone because she doesn't have any friends, because the only person who she lost in her life was her friend Peter Parker. and for that reason she is scared to like, you know, to be friends with anybody again. And she has another subplot which goes through the film where she kind of learns to trust people and to be friends with them, and to do that through the kind of medium of Miles Morales. And they hint at a little bit more of a thing, like they kind of have that they're maybe like gonna get together. They have a kind of, as right at the end of the film, they have this kind of thing where it's like, oh, Miles, I'm talking to you again through the multiverse. Do you have a minute? I don't know if that's a real thing or not. By the way, spoilers, I just realised I haven't really talked about the fact I will be talking about spoilers throughout this film. So if you haven't watched this film yet, definitely go and watch it. It's a brilliant film. And then come back and watch this and see if you agree with the things that I have to say about it, pretty much. Sorry about that. Might try and edit that into the beginning. I don't know. But yeah, so this is the part we're going to be talking about spoilers now, I guess, because beyond that, there's not really much else I can talk about. It will get boring, stagnated, whatever. You also have Spider-Ham, who is a Spider-Man character called Peter Porker, who is animated in the style of like Looney Tunes, and that he even makes a reference to it. That's all, folks. You know, he says that right at the end when he's going back to his own dimension. He provides some of the humor, really, I guess, kind of like slapstick moments, kind of like the old Looney Tunes sort of moments where you'd have, like, you know, giant weights landing on people's heads and like people hitting each other with hammers, that sort of thing. He provides that kind of comedy aspect, and beyond that, he doesn't really offer anything else. But at this point, we'd already had the introduction of another 4 Spider characters. We don't need everybody to have a subplot, and that is what makes this film so good, is that it just decides to ignore certain aspects of the film that it knows it doesn't need to talk about, because as an audience we'll just accept that they exist. We know that you know, through the medium of film and TV, that other alternate universes exist in terms of like superheroes and this kind of world, that all these worlds colliding, they exist within DC universe. It's been shown in films before, it's been shown in other TV shows. We don't need to have a massive explanation about it. Not every character needs to be really, really, really important. Some characters can just be there. And then, speaking of other characters that are sort of just there but not really, Spider Noir, I think, or is it Spider-Man Noir? I can't remember. But he's voiced by Nicolas Cage, and he's kind of like gritty 1930s black and white, like the very old TV shows, sort of detective. And he's got like a black, I'm pretty sure it's a trench coat, and like a trilby is also black, and he's everything's in black and white. You can only see in black and white, which is a joke they have kind of running through the film. And yeah, he's a brilliant character as well. He adds kind of all these characters are really interesting. They bounce off each other really well. Whenever they're in the room together, they have this kind of chemistry when they talk to each other. And you've also got Penny Parker, which is this like kind of anime style girl who befriends the spider rather than actually it biting her and then dying, and then it powers a robot, and she can also go inside the robot. And it's a bit weird. It's sort of like anime, so I'm kind of saying it's Japanese. I don't know if she is. She might be Korean. I don't really want to go into it because I'm treading a fine line here in terms of racial profiling. But yeah, I don't know if she's Japanese or Korean or whatever. But she has her own. They all have their own art styles. You know, Spider-Gwen and Peter B. Parker and Miles Morales have a very similar art style, and then you have Spider-Ham that's styled right like the Looney Tunes. It's like you've just dropped him in, as well as Spider Noir, who's all in black and white, and his cape's always flowing, and it drops that in as well. And then obviously, yeah, you have the anime style Penny Parker and her robot, and like she talks and her mouth moves, but it's like a dubbed anime in that her mouth doesn't move as well as distinct words, because it's like it's been dubbed for real life, and that in the other world she speaks in Japanese like it would be in a normal anime. So it's just these little brilliant details that they interweave into this film, and it's just all brilliant, and I absolutely loved it. In all honesty, it was an absolutely amazing film. You had the villain Kingpin. He had his character, which was decent, animated brilliantly. He's a very old villain. You know what his kind of deal is. He is a Kingpin. That is his character. That is what he is. He runs the city kind of from underground, and he's this massive, imposing figure, giant body, and he's trying to get his family back by going into quantum universes and finding another family to drag back and have, because he lost his own family. And that kind of look is a much better groundwork for a villain than most, where it's like, I just want to destroy the world, as they mostly are. So seeing that sort of thing was a good, refreshing take on superheroes, but, you know, in terms of superheroes and the dynamic they have with villains, having your own family and saving others, and, you know, how far would you go to save your own family? You can think about the decisions that maybe you would make in that situation, that they're maybe not too different from what he would do. Obviously, you don't want to destroy the whole world to save your family, but up to some point you would think maybe about it. And yeah, I guess we'll talk about maybe the little disadvantages that there is a tiny amount of. I mean, to be honest, like, this film has been really critically well reviewed. It's done so much better than it really had the right to, in all honesty, as it's made by Sony. But Sony in inverted commas, we'll call that, because it is made by the people who made the Lego Movie and the Lego Batman movie. Not the same people who made Minions. It's not that. This is what I mean. It's like it's a different branch. It's like when Marvel teamed up with Sony for Spider-Man Homecoming. It's pretty much an entirely different film. You should kind of just ignore the fact that Sony's even involved in this project. That they need to take this as a lesson in that they do not need to make films on their own anymore. They can get someone else to do it, because that is the easiest way in which they will find, you know, the perfect blend of cinematography and plot and making it all work. Because at the moment, yeah, they can't make their own films in terms of like Spider-Man or even superheroes. They just can't do it themselves. They need the help from other companies to sort of just prop it up a little bit with good dialogue and ideas. I'm sure they could do it maybe themselves. They thought about it hard enough, but recent evidence has suggested that they can't. And the fact that they're trying to plow out all these films is just not going to work out for them, I don't think. But the only problem that I have is that this film has been set in a comic book style. It's like a comic book. It's Miles's story of him finding Spider-Man. And again, we're moving into like big spoiler territory. And the original Spider-Man, who's in the universe, like dying right in front of his eyes and telling him to like keep on, and he's going to show him the ropes and everything like that. And it's all moving through the plot. And then but just before he sees Spider-Man die, he kind of has this moment where it's reflecting Peter's first time that he got his powers, and like the words are appearing like a comic book style, and they're in the text and it's in the boxes, and like kind of like, you know, when he fires his web, it makes the like noise in the thin air, like kind of when Batman punches the villains in the old 60s TV show. And that was brilliant, but the fact that it only appeared a couple of times throughout the course of the film annoyed me a little bit, just because of a lack of consistency. I mean, he made it seem as if the whole film was this just one comic book. So like, why not just portray it as a whole comic book? I mean, I wouldn't mind. Like, I would probably prefer it, as I said, for the sake of consistency, to just keep it in there. And but that's literally the only qualm I have with the film. Something else that I've just totally forgotten about, I'll be honest, is Miles's uncle. He creates an interesting character dynamic. I thought he was going to be there as like some sort of spiritual helper, I guess you could call it. And it turns out he's the Prowler, who's an enemy of Spider-Man and tries to kill Miles like at one point when he doesn't realize who he is, and then is killed himself by Kingpin when he refuses to kill Miles. So it's like that created another interesting dynamic again. Like, they had all these, I keep forgetting about these things, because even though they're brilliant and each one of them is amazing, the film just kind of just goes through it as if it's not even like, it doesn't even matter. It's like it's just here. They're all here, and you know, they're all black superheroes and well, not all of them, obviously, black superheroes and supervillains, and it doesn't matter. But I'm going to force the like race issue down your throat, as so much media tends to do these days. They're just trying to force everything into our mouths. That's not what we're about. That's not what they're about. So yeah, no, I'm really pleased with this film. Definitely go and watch it if you haven't already. I can't remember if I've given a review like score. I think I gave it a 9.25, and I will stick with that. If I was to give it a 5, like in terms of 5 stars review, I would give it a 5 rather than a 4.5 or whatever. I'd give it a 5. It's definitely a brilliant film, and you should go and watch it if you haven't already. All the characters are brilliant. Music's brilliant. I was a tad sad when they didn't play all the way through Post Malone's Sunflower, because it's a great song, and a couple of times they kind of hinted at it being, you know, like played, and then they stopped, and I was kind of sad, but it's fine. It wasn't that big of a deal, in all honesty. Having, like, as I said, the fact that I've even brought it up just shows that I'm nitpicking to the tiniest degree. Like, you know, it's ridiculous to have, yeah, like, you know, this amount of nitpicking in a film. It's been a long time since I've had to go this deep in order to find issues. And as my friend said, as soon as I came out and was talking about the comic book style, that it's not consistent all the way through, that is me nitpicking, and that is literally just me challenging a design choice of the people who made the film. It's not even like I'm like pointing out obvious errors with the plot. I mean, there was literally nothing in that regard that I could talk about negatively anyway. So go and watch it if you haven't already. It's a really great film. Definitely giving it 5 out of 5 stars, or 9.25 out of 10, whichever one you want to take. I'll be doing a video soon on Westwood Gaming, most likely, talking about all the films that I've looked at this year, going through them in hindsight and thinking about what I'm going to be, you know, saying at the end of the year rather than at the start of the year or whenever I was looking at the film. This will be my end of the year review for this one, definitely. I don't think I'm going to cover this one because I'll pretty much say the same sort of stuff. Really enjoyed it. I don't see my opinion changing at all with this film. I still say it's a brilliant film. Probably the best Spider-Man film I've ever seen, I'll be honest. Spider-Man 2 is a brilliant film, and so was Spider-Man Homecoming, but this one was very self-aware. It was almost like a parody of Spider-Man, and it happened to be better because of the fact that it was so self-aware, had so many aspects in it, twisted things, subverted things, lots of plot twists. It was just a great film, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to be talking about that most likely sometime. I don't know. It'll either be very early January or late this year, either one. But yeah, stick out for that. If you want to look at my Twitter as well, I'll also do reviews on there whenever I go and look at a film, apart from this one, because this one I wanted to talk about for ages on. I've been talking about it for almost 20 minutes. So we'll probably cut this one off now. But thank you guys for watching. If you really enjoyed this video, give it a like or a subscribe or whatever. And make sure to hit the bell notification. I'm kidding. I don't ever post videos on this platform. I'll see you guys around. Have a good one.